Okay, we're back and carry on.
Well, yeah, I think that if we come back to Tom Snudden, it does seem like there's some issues around him as being a corrupt figure in similar ways that we could see with like the OJ case. The LA police force are very much worthy of our criticism, and there's no reason to think that he wasn't really just like hungry to get Michael for some dubious reasons. I can't comment on whether he's innocent or not. He's a strange enough guy that I think neither
It's
would
not
surprise.
impossible. It's
Yeah,
not
neither would
impossible.
surprise me. Neither would
Yeah,
surprise me.
but the criminal justice system in the US is and always has been completely corrupt. So, you know,
And racist.
and racist. And eager to, you know, uh crucify some public figure that's going to get headlines for the DA.
And the people, the accusers, there's just a lot, obviously, like, money is just a huge incentive. Like,
Right.
Michael was a target, no doubt.
Mhm. Yeah, but at the same time there, some weird things that he like publicly admitted to, like in an interview with Oprah or someone talking about, sharing his bed with kids,
Yeah,
and I mean,
exactly.
that was
We drink
strange.
Coke,
I
we drink hot milk together. It's fun. It's so innocent. Something
that
like that.
that's eyebrow raising,
I bring him hot milk.
but again, if we're talking about this Peter Pan case, like, who knows? Who knows?
Yeah, and I guess it's the question too of like what type of lifestyle a person in his wealth bracket can afford himself, right? That just like a person, it would be very hard for any other like adult male to even create those kind of situations, like and get away with it.
Well, I don't know. Sounds like we're getting into Epstein territory here.
Yeah, but yeah, I mean, I think it's insane for people to cancel his music. Is my point, I
Well, that's a
guess.
that's another matter. I mean, like, I don't have a strong opinion on what actually happened because I don't know. But this notion that, even let's take the worst case scenario,
Sure.
everything's true, everything that has been alleged, you know, all the accusations are true. He did all of that. He's that monstrous, horrible person. Uh, so you never like the music. You're gonna like retroactively say that, you know, Off the Wall is garbage because, you know, you found out later that this was a monster and you're ashamed of yourself for dancing and, partying to that. I mean, that is a little bit absurd. I mean,
Well, I think that's a bit
it's
of a
like
what's the
Philip
rhetorical
Ross.
fallacy? Sorry, I'm cutting
No,
you off.
it's like Philip Ross comment about, the arts not being a moral beauty pageant. I agree with that. Like, one of the worst people in all of history, allegedly, was the Marquis de Sade. But I still read his work when, you know, I can stand it. Sometimes it's a bit too transgressive, even for me. It's pretty appalling. But, that's a document that can be read as literature. Like, to say, it should be canceled. Okay. And what are you saving people from?
Well, I would say
What do
first I
we
want to go ahead.
what is this neo-puritanism? Like, what good does it do? Like, as you're listening to Thriller or whatever, you're you're thinking of molestation.
Right.
I mean, okay, you don't have to listen to it. I mean, if you want to do that, go ahead. But you're gonna like try to censor him and let no one listen to him. Like he should be removed from all platforms.
Right. From
I
radio.
say, I say, fuck all that. That's no. I mean, okay, you could say, well, that's like saying, George W. Bush should be allowed to show his paintings. I don't accept that. First of all, I think he should be allowed to. Even though George W. Bush is a fucking war criminal and a piece of shit, far more of a piece of shit than Michael Jackson was, even if we're admitting the worst about him, right? That's my opinion. You're not
Yeah.
nodding your head. You
I'm
don't
not. I don't
agree.
know. I'm not really interested in like
I am. He's
ranking people.
come on, man. Just look
We're
at the
all connected,
numbers.
bro. We're all
Just
connected.
look at the numbers. No, we're not. I didn't
Yes,
approve
we
of what
are.
I didn't
We're all
approve of what
connected.
I didn't approve of what George W. Bush did,
We're
and I
still all
think it's
connected.
I think it's disgusting that he's painting pictures of soldiers that he sent out to be mutilated and destroyed and sent out to mutilate and destroy others. That find that disgusting, but I wouldn't censor it. I just, wouldn't support it, and I think it's garbage. But, I'm not even in favor of censoring that. So I'm certainly not going to censor the work of someone who is an artist his entire life and is not a war criminal. I mean, maybe he's vile in other ways. So what? You know?
Well, I mean, I think
Uh
this is an interesting thread that you're on now because what? So now you're like ranking the level of badness, and so on one hand, I hear you saying that we shouldn't be conflating their moral lives with us being open to their art and still appreciating the art. But on the other hand,
okay,
you're
fine. I First of
but I
all,
mean, what you can't.
I don't appreciate George W. Bush's painting, okay? I'm
Sure.
sorry. But this is like his so-called art, you know, is like an afterthought. He's primarily a war criminal and a piece of shit politician. And then, he wants to whitewash his reputation by showing his softer side. Okay, yeah, I mean, should he legally be allowed to do it? I guess. Should there be a law against it? Well, first of all, he should be, you know, in jail for, war crimes. But he's not, obviously. He's still at large, and he never will suffer any consequences for it.
So I want to spin this a little bit a different way, which is I'm sure you agree that all of us contain, you know, good and bad. I don't even like good and bad, but you get the point. We're all some kind of mix of. I mean, we can agree that there are more harmful aspects to our character and more like loving aspects. So it seems crazy to me to like a person like Michael Jackson. Let's say he has really fucked up sides to him from trauma, and he's traumatized others. But if we don't take the good side of him, then it's like, what's the point? Like the good side of him should be the part that we embrace. And like, so
Mm-hmm.
that's kind of more the spin that I like to take on it, which is
Well, one problem is that everything is commercialized, right? Like, so because he made millions and millions of dollars off of it, people, as a kind of revenge, want to take that away from him. So it's an understandable reaction, but at the same time, as you say, that could be depriving people of appreciating the good aspects of his existence and what he
yeah.
did on this earth. I mean, it's just, first of all, that shit doesn't work. Like, you try to cancel people, they just come back 1,000 times stronger. So it's not effective anyway. Like censorship is a stupid thing, just like repression is a stupid thing. It's going to out one way or another, you know. So that, apart from the truth or the falsehood of the allegations, I'm not in favor of that. And as I say, I'm consistent. I'm not even in favor of you know, censoring the so-called art of that great portrait painter George W. Bush, the war criminal. But to say that those things are equivalent, no, I don't accept that. We can still make distinctions, and I also don't accept that. Yeah, we're all the same. You know, you and I, uh, English teachers overseas, were equally responsible for the evil in the world as fucking George W. Bush. I mean, come on. And Dick Cheney. We're the same as them? No, I don't accept that. I'm not.
Okay, well, we'll
No.
have to. We can broach that in another pod. But I would just say the last last
I mean,
funny
I'm not
scenario.
good either. I'm not saying I'm good. I'm not saying I'm good. I'm not saying I'm pure. I'm not saying I'm, you know, a better person, but my level of culpability does not extend to what those motherfuckers have done. No way.
Okay, can we just talk? Let me just give my other scenario back, coming back to like art coming from quote unquote immoral people. If
Mm-hmm.
there was like a serial killer, someone really heinous
Mm-hmm.
who we heard that, oh, they made this album, bro. It's like the greatest musical album ever created. Like, would you listen to it?
Yeah, I have. I listened to Charles Manson's music. You know,
Yeah, so I
he
guess
he
that would
would
be the
he thought of himself as a musician. He actually had many contacts in the LA music world. I mean, the Beach Boys stole one of his songs and like changed the lyrics, and it's on one of their albums. He I think he tried to audition for the Rolling Stones. He had a record contract with Candice Bergen's boyfriend, who then changed his mind and became a target. You know, so the, I mean, look at all the rappers that have criminal backgrounds. I mean, and not only rappers.
I guess that and but just coming back to that the hypothetical that I offered you, I think that's like the question people need to ask, like assuming you're not again giving money to somebody who's then like perpetrating further crimes, but if it's just like this isolated in a vacuum scenario where you can either listen to this creation by this bad person or not, which would you do? And if you're on the, I'm also like you, I would listen
Of
because
course, I would listen. I mean, I just said like you have the works of Marquis de Sade. You have Jean Genet, you know, who was a criminal. Uh,
and because I would also argue that people are different, like moment to moment. Like there's Michael in the studio that is a different person entirely in a way from
from
who he
Michael
is.
hanging out with the kids.
Exactly.
Well, I mean, you know, another example would be Burroughs, who fucking murdered his wife. If you want to look at it that way, it was an accident and they were fucked up, but he basically shot her in the head. It was a game of William Tell gone wrong, but you know, at the very least, that's involuntary manslaughter. So should I not read any of his novels? And also, he was. You want to talk about having an interest in underage boys? That's Burroughs.
Well, there's a rich tradition of that going back to the Greeks.
So you know, how far do you take it? Do you not read Plato because he may have fucked boys? You know, uh, do you not read the Bible? That depicts quite a bit of pretty horrific stuff, doesn't it? So that you got to censor all that. Cancel the Bible. Can't have that.
There's a really controversial quote from Barbara Streisand.
Mm-hmm.
Um, in response to the Michael case, which she had to apologize for. And I'm not condoning this quote either, but I'm just putting it in the record for amusement's sake. She said, his sexual needs were his sexual needs, coming from whatever childhood he has or whatever DNA he has. You can say molested, but those children, as you heard grown up versions of them say that they were thrilled to be there. They both married and they both have children, so it didn't kill them.
Yeah,
I'm not condoning that. It's
that's
interesting
what
to
she
take.
said.
Yeah, that's what she said.
I mean, Dave, I sent you some Dave Chappelle clips. They're
Right.
pretty irreverent, but they're also
Oh man, that
very
was
they're hilarious and what are you going to say in response to them? We don't need to rehash them. People can look them up, but he didn't believe the
yeah,
accusers, and I can't say he's wrong because I don't know, and he says himself he doesn't know.
yeah.
That's
Well, the
just
next
his
track
feeling.
is a nice transition to this conversation. It's money, and obviously we've talked about money's central role, whatever way you look at it, in a lot of the allegations that swarmed around Michael.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you enjoyed this track. You put it in your higher tier when we tiered them in our What's Up chat. So,
Well,
do
I
you want to
just,
tell
I
us?
just, I just think it is more intriguing than you apparently found it. It was
I like
what
it too.
in the middle for you.
Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's maybe around the middle, but I just found myself listening to it over and over again. For one thing, it's got a great chorus. Like it's a really uh, groovy
anything.
chorus. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I like it, and it's sort of like it doesn't really fit the rest of the song. There's kind of a spoken word aspect to the rest of it, but when it hits the chorus, it really grooves.
It's kind of a Prince flavor, even I would
Which
say.
is maybe why I like it. Because by the way, in the Prince Michael feud, I'm Team Prince all the way and always have been. But
Okay.
uh, yeah, there's something to that. But also there is one section. It recurs maybe three times, but there are these crazy metallic sounds, and I listened to them over and over again, and I sent the the uh, the song to my son, who's a drummer, and asked him to identify what's going on. Like it's something with the percussion, the drums, right? And so he decided, and he convinced me that what we were hearing was hi hat barks, and hi hat barks are an important element in funk drumming. And so you've got these hi hat barks, and I think some kind of effect was used on them too to make them even more metallic. Maybe they were EQ'd a certain way or they were filtered, but it's a very nice element. In fact, if I were making donuts too, I would clip these hi hat barks and like build a track out of that, or combine it with something else.
Nice shout out to
Yeah.
our former episode, Jay Dilla. Yeah, it's one of the apparently two known songs which feature Jackson rapping. You called it spoken word. Um, and I like the way his voice sounds. I picked out a couple lines that are kind of nice, like "You're saluting the flag, your country trusts you. Now you're wearing a badge, you're called the just few, and you're
Mm-hmm.
fighting the wars a soldier must do." So it's quite provocative and interesting.
Well, if he's rapping, he sounds kind of uncertain of himself. Like especially at the end of the verse, it sounds kind of awkward. But I think that's charming in a way. He's almost
I really like,
whispering it. They call the
yeah,
back. They call the backstabbers.
that's the next part I wanted to do. Is like, are you infected with the same disease of lust, gluttony, and greed? Then watch the ones with the biggest smiles, the idle jabbers, because they're the backstabbers.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool section. Um, Here's the controversial part. So he says something about towards the end. He says something like how he bigs up people who made money in a more honorable, like self-made way. And then you hear this. You probably didn't catch this, and I didn't catch it until listening to a podcast about it. Um, but he cites different names. He reads a series of names, and he reads the names Vanderbilt, Morgan, Trump, Rockefeller, Hind, and then Getty. And it's unclear whether he's criticizing them or praising them. But unfortunately, I feel like he's praising them,
Yeah,
and I think more progressive listeners are hoping that he's like calling them out. But I'm less confident that that's the case, especially
and
because of his friendship with Trump.
that's not the only appearance of Trump in Tabloid Junkie. There's like a soundbite which says Jackson's longtime friend Donald Trump.
Yeah.
Did you catch that?
No, but I didn't catch it this time, like in preparation for the pod. But
Mm,
yeah, I
yeah.
think that I don't know. I think it's a good song. Should we
Well,
move on?
it's interesting. I mean, you know, for me, Pink Floyd's Money is far superior, but that's just my taste. I did enjoy it, and I think that is one of the more memorable tracks on disc two for me.
And for me, it's like a mid-range track.
Mm,
Yeah,
okay,
but good enough. Good enough that I don't skip it.
right.
Uh, Next song we could argue about a little bit, just because I think it's an excellent cover of the Beatles Come Together. Interestingly, it was recorded in 1987 for Bad. I don't know if you knew that, and
Mm-mm.
it was actually released at the end of the Moonwalker movie. I don't know all the details, but the point is, and a few of these tracks they have origins that go back as far as like 10 years.
They
So it's not
have
like he cut.
they have history, you might say.
Yeah, exactly. So that's just kind of weird. I don't really like that. I wish they were all like a response to that particular moment.
And
But
are we even going to talk about the orthography of this record? Capital H, capital I, capital S, lowercase Tory.
yeah, I think it's more cute than really interesting. I mean, I don't. I think it's a bit naff to use a British term.
Hmm.
What about you? Do you like it?
I'm not sure what NAF means, but I think it probably is NAF.
I'm just starting to use this word more, but it means lacking in style or good taste.
Yeah, it's not in good taste. It's pretty
It's
lame.
corny,
It's
right?
corny.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
And Michael is corny
Mm-hmm.
to some extent, and but
Yeah.
not completely. Not completely.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think I'm always wrestling with that as someone who's a mega fan. Like, try again. We come back to that line between corny and like progressive and cutting edge.
Mm.
Um, so, but again, I think this. So we mentioned that he bought the rights to the Beatles catalog in 1985, but this is the only song that he chose to release as a cover, and I think he kills it. I think it's slicker. Often people are biased by which one they heard first. That's clearly the case. I heard this one first. Maybe that's shameful that I heard it first, but I did. And I think it's again, I don't think it's watered down, and that's always the criteria I'm using. I think it's like sharp. I think it's powerful and funky.
Well,
What do you think?
I'll agree with slick, and that's basically what I don't like about it. I mean, it's not bad. I think it's probably better than Aerosmith's cover, you know. So it's not like a I have a rock bias because Aerosmith did a rock version of it, which I just don't find
First of all,
interesting either.
Michael can be a rock star. I mean, this is rock. Michael does rock. It's just
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, I guess you could say that. It just doesn't
you
really
think a
do
black
much.
man can't do rock, huh? I'm kidding.
There's just I'm not even going to dignify that with a response, but it's
Okay, good.
just there's something he does something interesting with the chorus, I guess. Like there's a harmony part that is not in the original that I thought was a
Over
nice
me, is it that?
nice idea.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, I'm not. I don't think the guitar part played apparently by Jennifer Batten, who played with Jeff Beck. I don't think that's better than what's on the original. Um,
The vocal performance is strong though.
yeah, it's a good cover. It's not bad, but if you're asking me which I prefer, I definitely prefer the Beatles version.
But I will.
Sorry.
It seems like no, it's fine. But it seems like a good choice in a way. Like for what song of the Beatles would fit Michael vocal performance? You know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I would say in contrast to Smile, which we can talk about later. Um. Okay. So the next song is in many ways the biggest hits on the album. I would say it's like actually the biggest hit on the album. Um, despite a cringy video, and it is "You Are Not Alone," written by R. Kelly, now behind bars. Sorry about that, Mr. Kelly, but sorry to your victims as well. Um, but obviously, like a musical genius as well. R. Kelly, I mean, so many great songs of his own and standout songs that all of America embraced for proms, like "I Believe I Can Fly." It's like
Mm-hmm.
as big as you can get in terms of like a Celine Dion style hit.
Mm-hmm.
So great artist. It's a great ballad in my opinion. The key change later on is quintessential Michael, and I've heard that was something he added. So he always loves to add that kind of key change.
Modulation. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, do you want to talk about the video? I'm not really a fan of the video.
Well, the most obvious thing to point out about the video is if it features Lisa Marie Presley, his wife at the time, or I don't know if they were married yet,
They
or
were married. Yeah,
okay,
they were married,
yeah. So
and
that's
her
int-
with very little clothing. That's
yeah,
very important.
that's interesting too. I mean, it's like the king of pop is banging the king of rock's daughter. It's like a
Well, whether he ever banged her is another question.
yeah.
She bangs, as Ricky Martin would say.
Was she like his was she like his beard, you know, to to distract attention? Like it was soon after all the allegations that he called her up and said, "Let's get married," right?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that was not a
A
sexual.
publicity stunt. But they were quite close for the rest of his life, allegedly.
Yeah, who knows? Yeah, and I don't really want to say too much about it, but
Yeah.
they weren't together too long. Um, I would say I thought the thing you were going to mention is just how it a lot of the shots that were done in the temple scenes were an homage to a painting by Maxfield Parrish called Daybreak, which initially appears like it's influenced by classical art. It's like a scene from the Pantheon or the Parthenon.
Mm-hmm.
What's interesting and what I was very surprised by is that it's regarded as the most popular art print of the 20th century based on number of prints made, one for every 4 American homes. And it's according to the National Museum of American Illustration, it has outsold Andy Warhol's Campbell soup cans and Da Vinci's Last Supper.
I'd never even heard of it before you sent me that. So
Yeah, and like I've never seen it. I don't think. I mean, have you looked? Did you look at it?
yeah, but I hadn't never before you sent me that. I didn't even know what it was. So
And it's weird that how could it be so well known? It's
I
almost
don't
like a
know,
J.C.
like
Penney painting.
more popular than American Gothic, for example.
It was purchased by a private collector, Mel Gibson's then wife Robin, at an auction at Christie's for 7.6 million.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I don't know what to say about that. Yeah, I guess in some way, if I was like being very generous and like not willing to see cringe, there are like aspects of the video that are pretty.
Mm-hmm.
There's apparently a version. Well, I actually watched a little clip of it. A version that wasn't released, but it's like has Michael in angel wings, and he's got like thorns in his side. So add to the Messiah complex there.
The unironic self deification.
Exactly.
All right, well, we're up on an hour and a half now, so let's keep it
That's not too
moving.
bad. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Next track is Childhood. You can start on this one.
Oh, Lord. Here we go. Peter Pan. I mean, this made me uncomfortable. It's like I was watching him have a breakdown in public. Uh,
Are you speaking to a visual aspect of the song, or just the song as an audio experience?
well, I watched the video,
I
but
don't see. Okay, I didn't watch the video for this one. Okay.
but yeah, I mean, it's both. There's literal crying. I mean, he's like when he's singing it, he's breaking down, crying. It's a
Yeah.
uh,
So you
and
have
he
no sympathy
refers.
for him in this?
I'm not saying I don't. It just makes me uncomfortable. It's like I, want to help him get treatment or something. Uh,
Yeah.
it's I don't know. I'm thinking of Neverland Ranch as I'm watching this, and
Yeah.
he's talking about kidding around, which has you know multiple meanings, I guess. Before you judge me, try hard to love me. He refers to the childhood I've never known, which
Yeah.
I don't know how to interpret that. It's like he never had a childhood, so that's why he's stuck in this.
Yeah, it's pretty obvious. I mean, that's like a massive trope around Michael Jackson's life that
Yeah,
everybody cites. From age 5, Jackson 5, and he's
yeah,
basically living under this crazy regime of his father. He's
right,
abused by his father.
yeah, yeah.
So it's not like he doesn't have something like a
Oh
valid
no, there's no.
place to
Of
speak
course,
from.
there's real trauma and damage. I mean, no doubt about it. It just if it's like we have a window into that, which is to be expected, but does that make this a track I want to listen to over and over? Maybe not. I'm not saying it has no right to exist, or you know it shouldn't be
Yeah.
part of his
Oeuvre.
work, his oeuvre. It should, but I it's not a standout. It's not like the most banging track on this album. It's
Right.
not for you either. So just
No, it's not for me at all.
yeah,
And
of
I would
course.
just what I will say though is like there are some songs that he put out on his last album, Invincible,
Mm-hmm.
like which are even worse in terms of cringe factor. There's a song called The Lost Children.
Mm.
It's like for all the lost children. And it's just like it's cringe and it's not really interesting at all musically. Whereas like Childhood, I I do think it's like a well written song, and I think it's like an impressive piece of art that I isn't to my taste, but it has merit, and that's
Mm.
more than I can say for some of his later work. That's the final thing I'll say as like a
Okay.
bookend to that.
How about Tabloid Junkie?
Taboo Junkie is good, um, good beat, dancey. Uh, I wouldn't say it's like mind blowing in terms of message or the title is pretty obvious about where he's going with it. um yeah, I think it's a good dancey song, but it doesn't hit as hard for me as like Scream or They Don't Care About Us, in if we put it in that category, or a lot of stuff on Dangerous. What about you?
Mm-hmm. Uh,
Do you want to add
it's
anything on Tabloid Junkie?
no, not really. I mean, there it contains that Donald Trump reference that I mentioned, and he's everywhere in American culture. He's even in like, well, he plays a big role in American Psycho, for example, the novel, which I read last year and is a great canonical work. He's mentioned in Ishmael, that novel from I think the 70s, or maybe it came out in the 80s. Like it's almost inevitable that this guy became president of the failing American empire, you know.
I wonder what his next chapter has in store, but
Yeah.
I don't wonder that much.
Hmm.
Okay, I don't want us to like end this pod like just getting through the tracks, but I think we have focused on the tracks that were the most interesting for us. Next song is Too Bad. I love Too Bad. I
Shaq.
think it's funky. Yeah, the Shaq choice is interesting. Like, I think Shaq's okay on the song, but he's definitely not like a. You can feel he's not on the level of Biggie, for example, and nor should we expect him to be.
Mm-hmm.
Must have been a lot of pressure on the other hand for him to be like, damn, I'm gonna rap on like this Masters album, and I'm just like a basketball player who like likes to rap, even though he has an ego, obviously. Yeah, I don't think his appearance was that great, but I think it was okay. I think Michael should have chosen somebody else. It's kind of like him. Yeah, I don't know why he's doing that, except for the star power. But yeah, I grew up dancing,
Well,
as you
he's
know, as a
he's
hip hop
he's
dancer.
eliciting more support, or soliciting
Yeah,
more support. You
right,
know, it's like
right. That's a good
Shaq's
point.
Shaq's with me, Liz Taylor
Exactly.
Liz Taylor's with me, Donald Trump is with me, my sister's with me. You know, all of my friends. I get by with a little help from my friends.
Jordan was, had a big role in Jam on the previous album, so there's another basketball
Mm.
connection. Um, yeah. Again, I was just saying that I was a hip hop dancer in high school, and for this is a song that like my teachers liked to use for choreography. So it was like it's a really dancey song in my opinion, like one of the best funky dance cuts on the album.
Hmm.
Okay, anything else, or should we go to the next song?
Well, I would just say that this has the line "scream and shout it," so there it is.
Why don't you just scream and shout it? There you go.
Mm.
You don't seem impressed. Okay,
Well, you cut out there for a minute, so.
man, yeah, this we're gonna have to deal with the internet thing, but not now. History.
Hmm.
The do we say the eponymous track?
Yes.
Is that how would that be a
Hmm.
correct usage? Okay,
Yep.
very mixed song for me, good and bad. Um, Again, one of those songs that has like it's corny when it resolves into this major key of like the hook. Every day, create your history.
Mm.
That's not really that interesting for me. But the more like I got to get in the back, I like that more. So this song has everything in terms of like good and bad.
I like
What do you
the
think?
I like the everyday create your history part. It reminds me
Okay,
of like a flower power anthem, you know. It's in a way similar to the Rolling Stones sing this all together from their psychedelic masterpiece, Their Satanic Majesty's Request. I
okay.
mean,
By
it's
the way,
not, it's just in terms of lyrical content, you know, it's
the
kind of
subtext of this pod is going to be classic rock
kind of
references.
universalist message, you know. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
kind of a hippie song.
Okay. I just don't like the hook very much.
Mm.
I don't find it interesting. But as I said, I like the kind of like that. Oh,
Hmm.
without I sound a little bit like David Brent right now from The Office. So I need to stop. Okay. Um, the last two songs are the most objectionable parts of the album for me. Like I just cannot listen to either of them.
Hmm.
Um, I think you said Little Susie was interesting. So why don't you say something about track 14, Little Susie?
Well, I mean, the song doesn't even start until about 3 minutes in. I don't know what all that stuff I'm hearing before that is, but yeah, it's mawkish also, but
It's
musically
haunting though
interesting.
too.
Yes, and yeah, it's musically interesting. There's screaming on this too, you know, so it's really dark. You'd have to listen several times and explore it more. I didn't do that, but I thought, you know, that musically it had something to recommend it, and I felt the same about the cover of the Chaplin song "Smile." I mean, there's a nice violin solo in that, and the piano at the end is enjoyable.
Well, do you want to say anything about the narrative of Little Susie? You know, I mean, it's about this woman, this girl is dead, right? And
Yeah,
she's
and this is also called Pia Jesu. You know, it's like Little Susie slash Pia Jesu, which is
what do you mean by
pious.
that?
That's the title, the official title. Look it up on YouTube. It's Little Susie slash Pia Jesu, which is pious Jesus. So it's like Little Susie is being uh, connected in some way to baby Jesus. So like every dead child is Christ crucified or something. I mean, it's pretty morbid, pretty mawkish, but he's definitely trying to deal with some deep, dark emotional material there. I guess give him credit for that.
It's
I
like
don't.
like a William Blake Songs of Innocence aspect,
Yeah, it could
or
be.
would that go unexperienced? But you know, just the
I
maltreatment
mean, it's
of
almost
kids.
like the since we're giving all these classic rock
You are
illusions. Yeah, I am. Since I'm the one who knows them. But there's a
exactly.
Alice Cooper song called "Dead Babies," so it's kind of which is more in your face about that aspect of it. But that's what this is. This is his "Dead Babies" song, you know.
Okay. All right.
Without
Yeah.
but an unironic dead babies. It's like, you know, you don't see how this is kind of exploitative too. Like, okay, you recognize the pathos of this situation, but you got to also recognize how you're kind of exploiting it in a mawkish way. Or
Can you go into mawkish a little bit? You're using that word a
I
lot.
wish you would I wish you would do that. Yeah,
You're
mawkish.
using
It's
the
kind
word
of,
mawkish a lot.
yeah, I
Yeah.
know. So it's like overly sentimentalized to the point that you want to vomit. Maybe,
Okay.
you know. It's like, yeah. I mean, cringe is an aspect of it. It's like, that's a
Okay.
little bit too much there. Like, I get it. You're upset about the dead baby, but come on.
Yeah. And then yeah. So the ultimate cringe song for me is "Smile," just because it's so sickly and
Mawkish, dare I say?
yeah, but it's like syrupy and it's like someone who's just being too emotional with you and
Well, there's an exhibitionist kind of element in a lot of these tracks, you know, and okay, that you could say that all art is exhibitionistic to some degree, and every consumption of art is voyeuristic to some degree. So, but how, you know, do we want that accentuated to this degree? Usually I don't, you know. It's kind of
and I
like
think
emotional porn in a way.
yeah, for some of Michael's fanboys, this is like the stuff that they eat up, you know,
Mm.
because it's like they want to again, and I responded to that emotion to some extent, but just not on songs like this. But they want to fight for him, they want to comfort him. Maybe they're lonely souls, and this is really how they feel too. But yeah, the fact that he's like breaking down on his performance of Smile, you know, I mean, yeah, it's like I can't deny it as art. It's just not the art for me, man.
Yeah, it has every right in the world to exist, just like George W. Bush's fucking portraits. have the
Hey,
right
but
to
okay,
exist.
the right. Nobody's saying that. You don't even have to be entertaining that question. I'm just saying, like, I can see it as like art. You know, I can see it as like I don't think it's poorly done. That's my point. Because there is a lot of art that I would go on and criticize and just say this is bad. But I
Hmm.
don't think this is necessarily bad. I just think it's like it's not for me.
Well, I think the choice of a Chaplin song is interesting because he's kind of a Chaplin-esque character himself, you know? Like think of the tramp character, Chaplin's tramp character, you know? He's kind of a cultural icon uh, that is supposedly embodying these everyman qualities, these humanistic qualities, but I don't know. To me, there's always a kind of artificiality about that character, and I would say maybe something similar is going on with MJ. But
I
I
mean, I
think
know that Michael adored him,
yes.
adored Chaplin,
So
and
there you
those kind
go.
of
And I
old
think,
time.
and the song is about putting a smile on even when you don't feel it. So I think it's a good theme song
Right.
for him because he's clearly a tortured, uh, you know, damaged, traumatized person, but the show must go on, right? So you got to put on the
Yeah.
makeup and put on the smile and go do the song and
Yeah.
dance. So I think
Right.
it's an
Yeah.
appropriate ending. Actually, again, I'm not saying I love it, but I understand why he chose it,
Sure.
and I think
One of
it's
the pods I was listening to made a nice point of saying that, you know, you got on one end, you start with this S word, 5 letter word, scream to smile. It's
mm-hmm.
kind of cool way to think about the sequencing.
Yeah. In terms of phrasing, I think it's quite effective. Yeah.
Um, all right. We have completed our track by track. Um, the internet issue has been a bit annoying for me, and I hope that doesn't come out on the recording.
I think it's okay. Yeah, I lost you a couple of times, but overall it was okay on this end.
Okay. Well, I think maybe we can we add one final word maybe to just to say something about why don't you
Well,
like say one
I
thing
have
about just kind
one.
of how you view Michael the
Sure.
figure, and then I'll
Well, I have one thing I wanted to point out. Something I learned this week as I was listening and researching this topic. Apparently, Diana Ross was a huge mentor for
yep.
Michael, and I found that touching because I've always liked Diana Ross and the Supremes especially. So I'm just imagining her, you know, in Motown, mentoring this young boy, and she's basically like his surrogate mother. It's really touching, and I can see. I mean, apparently she gave him the confidence to really be himself, to let himself uh, blossom. And
Well, let me
I
ask
like that.
you.
That's
In
nice.
addition, let me just ask you how you view him as just a cultural figure
I mean,
of our time.
he's never been an important artist for me, like musically or otherwise. I've enjoyed some of his songs, many of his songs over the years, but like musically, I never, I don't think I was ever much influenced by him. I never tried to write anything like him. Um, I think the kind of pop genre that he represented was something that I consciously wanted to avoid. Um, Even though one of my great heroes, Paul McCartney, was a collaborator of his. I mean, like, I I guess appreciated him more through McCartney than otherwise. Uh, but
And I would just push back a little bit to say that putting him in the same putting Michael in the same conversation is just like, I don't know, generic pop musicians. We should maybe interrogate the word pop a little bit here, because he started as a soul, basically a soul or
yeah,
R&B
yeah.
artist.
Well, as I say, that's
And
what I like that period best.
sure, I'm just saying, as a pop artist, I would say he's just more popular rather than like pop as a aesthetical sound. He because he did all kinds of things sonically.
Mm-hmm.
But like, let me ask you, like, what do you think about, forgetting your own relationship to him as a musician? Like, what do you think about the fact that our world created this figure, again, who could be, what is he the largest celebrity the world has ever known?
Mm. Um,
And if so, what does that say about us, that this is the person, and the trajectory that his life followed, with this pretty nasty demise and deterioration,
yeah, and then
physically,
and yeah, and
mentally.
all the cosmetic surgeries. Dave Chappelle was talking about how when you look at that ghoulish white face, remember that he did that for you. He thought that you would like him better or love him better. I mean, that's it. I guess I would have to say it makes me sad, and I'm a bit horrified. Like, why was all that necessary? And what was the point of all that? And is that true that he did it because he felt like he wasn't lovable as
Well,
he
insecurity,
was,
for
or yeah,
sure,
he
for
was
sure.
insecure? I mean, uh I don't know, it makes me uncomfortable, and uh maybe that's why from the 80s on I've never like gone too deep with
Right.
MJ. Of course I've been aware of him, but it's like I say, there's certain songs I feel a connection to, and then a lot of it I just think is uh not for me, or maybe I have an even more contemptuous view of it. Like when I think about the teaser, for example, I mean, it's so uh outrageous to me that I feel ill.
But on listening to this album, where I don't really want to reduce it to a rating, because I think it's a bit crude, but
Yeah.
you can see that it's a good album, right? In many ways. You can
Yeah,
see
I
why I
mean,
think
there
it's a great album.
yeah, I mean, um for me it's more hit or miss, but there's certainly some very strong tracks on here. And as I say, in my opinion, most of the great tracks on here were those that he wrote himself. So that speaks to his, and this I wasn't aware of this actually. I thought like Thriller, I always thought Thriller was mostly Quincy Jones, but actually he wrote several of those songs himself. Of course, Quincy Jones arranged them, but he had more involvement in it than I thought. You know, and that's, for me, that's always the test of the musical artist. Like, are they writing their own shit? That
Yeah,
I'm because I'm interested in songwriting, like
yeah,
not dancing and singing. I'm interested in composition, songwriting. Of course, yes, perform them as well as you can, but what are you saying? And I think on this album, he's the one speaking, right? Like, clearly
absolutely,
this is the authentic. So I
exactly.
like that. I like the genuine, you know, authenticity of it. But I'm also disturbed by some of the unironic self revelations, right? Like,
Yeah,
and the embrace of the pop culture status. On the one hand, he welcomes all the attention, and then he is tormented by it, and he breaks down, and which
Well,
is
again, I think this is a
that's the dynamic of anyone, perhaps. Of course, when we create
well,
something,
especially those people who are chasing
yeah, we want
success.
some kind of recognition or acknowledgement, I guess. But you know to what extent, right? Like, and when we have it, I think we to put it in perspective, we need to see that it's kind of an accident, and it's kind of ironic, or it's a mixed blessing at best, right? Like, to unambiguously accept the label king of pop. I mean, you say you see a kind of ironical
Well, and
relationship to
rumor
that,
says
but
that he's the one who generated that label too, you know?
yeah.
So
But just think of, like,
not even
just think,
accepting it.
okay, look, here's another thought that I had. You could say that, in a certain sense, he and Prince are the godchildren of the godfather of soul, James Brown, right? You could say that. And I've already said, if it's a debate between those two, I'm Team Prince all the way. Just for,
But I'm Team
yeah,
Michael, you
that's
know?
fine. But for any number of reasons, I would say that. But, you know, James Brown probably is responsible for calling himself the godfather of soul. But, you know, the way he advertises himself as that is so, it's, you get the sense that he sees the humor in it, right? Like, he's being ironic when he of course he has the confidence and bravado too, but it's like he doesn't take it too seriously. And maybe Michael
Yeah, I
didn't
mean
either, but I
that's
feel
not
like he
Michael
did.
though. But I would say Michael at the same time, Michael at his strongest is like in front of a packed crowd where it's just like, you know, he does the slightest movement and it's like so powerful. So it's like it is the showmanship and the extreme, like that image that he's creating is like also gives us his greatest moments. I mean, Smooth Criminal, you know, like just the kind of ferocity and like and power. I guess I'm saying, of course, you could say that he could do that with a little bit more irony, but I don't know. You know, it's like I kind of think you take the good with the bad in terms of the Michael creation, the Michael. You know, it's like that's the greatest part of Michael too
Hmm.
is him hitting one pose and waiting 1 minute kind of for the crowd to go nuts before he does the next move or something, you know? So it's like a Vegas show, you know, or something. I don't know.
Hmm.
But anyway, we should go. My wife has returned. I'm going to the ballet tonight to see the bad boy of ballet, Sergei Polunin. I think I've talked to you about him before. So going to see his rendition of The Master and Margarita, and we're excited about
Oh,
that.
enjoy.
So
Well, next
yeah,
week we will explore Montaigne's essays. I'll send your specific assignment a bit later.
great. And you can send you can assign assignment now if you want. That some of the listeners
Well,
could.
I want us to focus on To the Reader. This is the introduction to Montaigne's essays. It's a very short
Okay.
little introduction to the work, and then you can explore as many of the essays as you have time to. But
Okay.
read To the Reader. It's an overview of the work as a whole, and it explains his purpose in writing the essays. But we can talk, we'll focus on that, and then we'll talk about a few random essays that we have
Nice. Looking forward to it.
time to read during the week.
Michael, I love you.
Right
I
on.
do.
Okay, until next time.
Peace out, everybody.